Welcome to West Virginia Birth to Three's second training in this on-demand series for the family assessment, first impressions, initial contacts, and dispositions with families. This training in the series will allow us to dive into why it becomes important to consider our dispositions with families so that we can begin to create positive relationships that serve the mission of West Virginia Birth to Three. This training will aim to cover the basics of welcoming families into the Birth to Three system through the family assessment process using those positive dispositions. The family assessment is the face of Birth to Three service delivery. So what do we mean by this? Well, the family assessment allows the interim service coordinator to become the family's first contact with the program. This essentially becomes the family's first impression of Birth to Three services. Knowing that West Virginia Birth to Three is a family-centered organization that goes into the homes of families and supports them in their strengths and challenges with their children, the first face or impression of this organization requires that we help families form a positive image of the people who will be coming into their homes. So this call to action for interim service coordinators is to continue to build these first impressions into that positive Polaroid. And apparently, this positive Polaroid happens quick. According to a series of experiments by Princeton psychologists, they found that it can sometimes take less than 1/10 of a second to form an impression of a person, simply from their face. What was even more astounding was that longer exposures didn't significantly alter these impressions. So we know as interims that we are the first impression, that first impressions matter. And they happen quick. So what do? How do we possibly increase the potential that families will form a good impression of the Birth to Three system through our initial contacts and the family assessment? A smile costs nothing, but gives much. It enriches those who receive without making poor those who give. It takes but a moment, yet the memory of it may last forever. A smile creates happiness in the home, fosters goodwill in business, and is the sign of friendship. It brings rest to the weary, cheer to the discouraged, sunshine to the sad, and it's nature's best antidote to trouble. Yet, a smile cannot be bought, begged, borrowed, or stolen, for it is of no value to anyone else unless it's given away. Some people are too tired to give you a smile. So give them one of yours, as no one needs a smile as much as those who have none to give. So as you can see from this short poem, the first thing we can do is simply to smile. We can become aware of how we present ourselves as we walk through the door of a family's home, by taking a moment to gather ourselves, by dropping the challenges of our own day for this family, and mustering up a big old smile as you knock on that door. A smile can go a long way, literally. Paul Ekman, a professor at UC Medical School in San Francisco and facial expression expert, said that we can pick up a smile from 30 meters away. A smile lets us know that we're likely to get a positive reaction, and it's hard not to reciprocate. So how do we increase the likelihood that we create a positive first impression for a family? We smile. We gather ourselves before entering the home, and we smile again. Now this may require you to think of something that makes you smile every time, like something silly that your dog did, or the best comedy movie that you've ever seen. Find it before ringing that doorbell, and you will have taken a step to creating a quick, positive Polaroid for that family in their journey with Birth to Three. So what is disposition? When we think about disposition, we really need to have that definition that will allow us to think more deeply about the elements that truly make it up. What we find in looking at the definition of disposition is a person's inherent qualities of mind and character. So we can say she has a friendly disposition, or he has a difficult disposition, or possibly she has a competitive disposition. While they're defined as inherent, they're not something that is set in stone or necessarily genetic. without room for growth or expansion. For example, as we consider the qualities of the mind, what we know is that the brain is constantly changing and adapting to the situation and new learning. We have good days, bad days, but we also know that research tells us that we can always bring the mind back to a more calm state through many different techniques. So for you, it might be a great song played loudly in your car, or sitting quietly and taking deep breaths, or maybe talking with a friend. We know that our ability to shift our mind state is possible. In fact, it's necessary during most of our day, whether we're working or at home, out with friends. Our disposition can be ever-changing and serving the needs in the places we're interacting. So why does disposition matter in birth to 3, or specifically in this case for the family assessment? Relationships are the key ingredient to the birth to 3 process. This begins with the first impressions and moves through the family assessment. The reason that our dispositions are so vital is that positive relationships between families and practitioners have been found to be correlated with greater overall satisfaction of services, higher family participation rates, and better outcomes for children. This is nothing to shake a stick at. Our dispositions serve as a catalyst to the way that birth to 3 services are presented to the family. As we interact with families, this may require you to find your thing that allows you to shift your mind state into a positive, compassionate, and helping disposition style that pulled you into this profession as you walk into a family's home. Because again, as we present this type of disposition, we increase the likelihood that services will be received well by families. We wanted to highlight several elements that can assist with the consideration of dispositions with families in birth to 3 through the family assessment. These include soft skills and empathy. In the next several slides, we'll dig a little deeper into how to cultivate your own sense of these elements when walking into homes of families and showcasing the caring, compassionate individuals that you are. The first element that we'll cover is soft skills, which are defined as personal attributes that enable someone to interact effectively and harmoniously with other people. It's our ability to relate with others, be understood, and communicate in a way that's effective. By contrast, hard skills are those job-specific skills that can be taught directly and tested over time. So if you were a bricklayer, the hard skills of the job would be knowing how to cement the bricks into specific patterns for durability and strength. In our case, in birth to 3, the hard skills include knowing the correct procedures and forms for specific times, knowing the timelines and deadlines, and adhering to them. Soft skills are the way in which we interact with the families to increase the likelihood that we communicate in a way with families that shows an interest in their experiences and compassion for their situation. So if we were presented with a situation during an initial visit with a family where mom begins describing a difficult situation at the park with her child, we use things like our facial expressions, body language, and our ability to listen and communicate, showing that we care. Just like hard skills, soft skills do require a lot of practice to allow you to become skilled at using them. And unfortunately, as of yet, there are no formal tests that can tell you if you've mastered these things. Your ability to know your level of success is through how well you manage your relationships with those around you. This can include your friends, your family, and your coworkers. So consider asking yourself, do people often misunderstand me? Do they form the wrong impression of me? Or do people often enjoy being around me and tell me what a great listener and friend I am? If you often find yourself misunderstood or misread, you might want to ask someone close to you to describe the soft skills that might be challenging your interactions. This is by no means easy, but it can be incredibly helpful. Sometimes it's something we aren't even aware of that we do, such as a resting scowl on our faces. It's amazing to discover new things about yourself, But the true benefit to doing so for the purposes of your job leads to opportunities for growth, not only in your work, but in your relationships outside work as well. On a side note, a great way to test your own soft skills is to pull out a recording that was left running in a situation, maybe a birthday party or some event where a camera was just left rolling. And you can watch yourself to see just what things, like your body language and facial expressions, are sharing. You could even video record a conversation with a friend and simply watch yourself to discover just what types of things you convey during conversations with others. As silly as it sounds, it can be a rewarding experience. In working with a family once, a mom expressed that her son didn't seem to want to do any activities with her at the table, but he was generally fine outside of the setting. I had asked her to record an activity together with her son that we could take a look at together at our next meeting to identify specific behaviors that might need to be targeted. Well, I received a phone call a day later with pure laughter coming from the mom. She expressed that she had watched the video, only to discover that when she was concentrating, she had a complete scowl on her face the entire time. She recognized that her body language and facial expressions were playing a big part in her son's lack of interaction at the table. She practiced becoming more mindful of these things, and her son adapted quickly. There are just some times that we don't know what we do, so becoming mindful of these softer skills is a way to potentially increase the likelihood that families will view the first interaction with West Virginia Birth to Three as positive and caring. While soft skills are not necessarily measurable, they are felt and read by another, and these feelings of support, care, compassion, empathy, and concern must be conveyed to a family during their family assessment. This takes us to the element of empathy and compassion. While these words are often used interchangeably, they hold different meanings, each vital to the process of birth to three. Compassion is not the same as empathy, though the concepts are related. While empathy refers more generally to our ability to take the perspective of and feel the emotions of another person, compassion is when those feelings and thoughts include the desire to help. So as you can see, both of these elements of our dispositions with families must be present for a family to feel supported and cared for in the birth to three process. Looking at motivational interviewing and psychotherapy, high levels of empathy during interviews have been associated with positive treatment outcomes. People like to feel understood, and people also like to know that they're cared about in situation of support services. We will discuss conversational interviewing as a way to use conversation in the interview process during the family assessment in the next training series. But as a general rule of thumb, we need to carry an empathetic and compassionate disposition into the homes of families, assuring them, again, that Birth to Three is a service built around respecting families and their homes. Learning their story through our caring and positive dispositions, standing with them in times of need, celebrating victories together, and supporting their every step along the way. We do this through communicating respect for families, their homes, their children, their desires and hopes for their children, and their feelings. Along with empathy and compassion, we use our soft skills to communicate verbally and non-verbally that the family's participation is not only welcome, but vital for success, that they're equal partners in this process. We show families that we hear them, their strengths and their needs, and their desires for their child. We use the family assessment to get to know the family in order to offer those supports and resources that may serve to enhance their experience. Now consider for a moment that it was necessary for you to allow someone into your home to be of support to someone or something that was highly important to you. Now, if this person showed up and caused you to feel that they were rushing your stories, potentially appearing bored with your stories by checking their watch frequently, or appeared disapproving of your actions or your home in some way, chances are that you might be a little bit hesitant to allow or invite these services back into your home. You might feel as though everyone in the organization operated this way as well, and you need someone to care if you're feeling comfortable inviting them into your home. The family assessment is just this for families. It's a family opening their door to the potential of services that will help their child, but also opening the door to the potential for judgment and scrutiny. It was found that often families can perceive a sense of judgment in early intervention, and that this is often a reality of simply allowing someone into their homes to offer support. So knowing that this is a potential, and it's increased by inviting a professional into their home, we can use our own knowledge of dispositions and first impressions to assist in lessening these feelings for families, and truly getting to know a family through creating an environment that's built upon compassion, empathy, and the soft skills that convey care. To summarize the sections of first impressions and dispositions, first impressions are vital, and we, as interim service coordinators, are the first impressions to the families of West Virginia Birth to Three. By becoming mindful of conveying a positive first impression, we increase the likelihood that service delivery will be seen in a positive light and that families will feel comfortable opening their homes to services. We smile and collect ourselves before entering the home to present a positive disposition as we walk through the door. We use our positive dispositions to interact with families during the family assessment, being aware of our softer skills such as body language, facial expressions, tone, and actions in order to convey a compassionate and empathetic experience. The family assessment is the focus of this training series. However, we would be remiss to overlook a critical prior step to the family assessment actually occurring in a family's home. So we're going to spend a few moments in this next section considering the initial phone call and preparing for the visit with the family. Taking our focus first to the initial phone call with the family to schedule the family assessment, we have to consider a few things. Number one, we're probably catching a family off guard with a phone call, as they might be busy with little ones or at work. And number two, this may be a very difficult experience for families, knowing that they've had to reach out for help with their child, either by their own choosing or urging from a professional. Number two is highlighted through the segment, The Dance Begins. Here you are, the professional, eagerly awaiting your new dance partner. Your arms stretched out, inviting us parents to enter your world. We, parents, having not chosen this dance, are usually not as eager as you. We may not approach you with open arms, but with tightly folded ones, clutched to our chest. We may feel reluctant, ambivalent, and often unwilling. For one thing, if we choose to join you, we have to acknowledge that our child has special needs. We have to acknowledge that we are entering your world, one that's initially unfamiliar and frightening. Entering into our partnership with you demands that we let go of our dreams and begin to build new ones. Our first impression and empathetic, compassionate dispositions are required from the first initial contact, the telephone call to set up the family assessment. It is a crucial step to introducing the Birth to Three system that is built upon care, compassion, and acceptance of a family's needs, feelings, and reactions to the call. So let's consider these two scenarios for a first phone call with a family. Scenario 1. Hello, this is Missy Cassis with West Virginia Birth to Three. I'm calling to schedule an appointment date with you for your family assessment. How does Friday, March 4th at 5 o'clock sound? Scenario number 2. Hello, Mrs. Smith. This is Missy Cassis with West Virginia Birth to Three, and I'm calling to schedule a date for our family assessment and welcome you to this process for your family and Johnny. Is this a good time for you now, or would you like me to call back at a time that might be a bit better for you? So as you might have seen from these two exaggerated scenarios, the first scenario was stale and rushed. It used a more direct tone, which placed the choice and the desire in the hands of the system versus the family. This may convey to a family that we, the system, will be making the decisions and that the family is simply following them. However, in the second scenario with the family, you have welcomed them, let them know exactly why you are calling, and asked their preferences to begin this process. You have let them know that they are the focus of what we do. So when we speak of disposition within these initial contact and phone calls, we want to convey to families that we are a system that meets their needs and desires, that we are here to listen and support without judgment or impressions of meeting the needs of a system. While we do know that there are needs to be met within the system, we want to allow the family to feel supported and cared for in this initial contact. If you believe that you might benefit from a script to assist you in speaking with families within this initial call, one is provided in the description of the training. However, keep in mind that in using a script to assist you, it should feel absolutely natural and genuine, so be sure to practice and make it your own. Here are some general tips for preparing for your first phone call or initial contact with a family. Number 1, make sure that you have the time to make the call and schedule a better time for the family that will allow you to be present in the call. Understandably, you are busy. We don't want to rush families in this call, simply because it will convey to the family that West Virginia Birth to 3 is a rushed, busy system built upon checking off lists. We know that child development is anything but that, so we have to work really hard to place ourselves in a space that will allow families to feel that we are present and looking to schedule a time that will allow you to really show a family that you're listening. Number 2, we also need to take a few moments before the call to think about, consider, or possibly remember if you've had a child with special needs, what it would be like or was like to receive a call to begin services. There's an element of acceptance that occurs in the first phone contact, possibly making concerns real for the family. It's our job to use a positive disposition with the family during this initial call so that we can convey a level of support for anything they may be thinking, dealing with, or experiencing in the process. When you've successfully scheduled your visit for the family assessment, there are a few helpful tips that may assist you along the way in continuing to create a comfortable and more open environment with families. Therefore, we can consider planning for the family in a way that will assist in creating positive first encounters that will leave a family feeling safe and secure with the West Virginia Birth to 3 system. The first thing we'll consider is our ability to dress for the families that we serve. I like to call this the sweatpants versus three-piece suit phenomenon. We need to consider our appearance when we walk through a family's store. And as silly as this might sound, we want to be sure that we're dressed in a way that conveys a put-together appearance. Or in other words, we don't want to show up in tattered sweatpants, but not one that might be so overdressed that it leaves a family feeling as though an expert professional is about to enter their home, someone who knows everything that they should do as a family, or potentially create a feeling of inadequacy. Hence the three-piece suit. So in preparing for the family assessment, we want to consider what would convey a warm, put together, and approachable dress style. The next item to consider is what to take and what not to take into a family's home. We of course need to take all necessary paperwork with us. However, it's more of the outside items coming in that serve to potentially create distractions or cause uncomfortable situations that we'd like to avoid. An uncomfortable situation might be having your car keys out and a child wanting to play with them. This may seem harmless. However, if those keys happen to wander away and become lost during the visit, this could potentially create an uncomfortable situation. So, a bag that zips up to include all necessary items may be the best bet so that a child's unable to access your personal belongings during the meeting and to avoid any uncomfortable situations like losing your favorite pen or your car keys in a family's home. We really have to begin considering our own values, beliefs, and assumptions, not just about our work, but our own feelings about what's important in life and raising children. Sometimes we might not even know that we're doing this. It can be a totally subconscious thing, but it can be very easily picked up upon by families. This process may inhibit your ability to hear a family's story because we may be too focused upon judging if a family's vision isn't the same as ours. If you remember from the disposition training, the potential for increased feelings of judgment on the part of families with children with special needs is a researched phenomenon. In order for the family assessment to be truly successful, we have to be open to what the family wants for their child and what they have to say, and ready to hear what they would like to see happen in order to plan for a truly meaningful IFSP. This is despite our own values, beliefs, and assumptions on what life is and what's important. A value has been defined as a person's principles or standards of behavior, one's judgment on what is important in life. Inherently, judgment is involved in a value, so we're required to leave our own values at the family's doorstep. An example of this might be your value of childhood, undoubtedly because you've chosen this field. You may value that the youngest children should be the most important individuals in a family. A family that you might encounter, however, in the family assessment process may see this very differently. They may place first priority on an older child's baseball practice and express that this is a focus at this time. Whether or not you agree with this and how you react may create feelings of potential judgment for the family. We have to be able to set aside our own values and work with those of the family, and this may include having to work around baseball schedules and rainouts, but it allows us access to this family and this child. If we can do this without allowing our own values to creep in, we have the greatest opportunity for reaching this family and working with them to progress their child's development. Now, a belief is defined as the state of mind in which a person thinks something to be the case, with or without there being empirical evidence to prove that something is the case with factual certainty. So in other words, a belief is when someone thinks something is reality or true when they have no absolute verified foundation for their certainty of truth or realness of something. A very important consideration here is to examine your own beliefs. Why do you believe certain things? And how might they affect your work with families? A possible belief that you might hold is that if a family is unable to provide for their child, they should consider allowing a child to be fostered. However, while this is a pretty strong statement, this is a belief, and possibly one that you might hold in your subconscious. However, there's no real evidence of this being better for a child. Again, sometimes these beliefs are hidden without our own consciousness of them. So as you interact with a family, say in this instance, who is struggling to provide food for their child, examine your beliefs and consider how they may affect this family in their progress. Instead, we can focus on resources that can help this family better provide for their child. Wasting any energy on what's right or wrong in a situation such as this is simply wasted time. We are a support system and not a judgment system, so we use our beliefs, not to mention one of our key principles in West Virginia Birth to 3 of holding the belief that all families with responsive and individualized supports can enhance their child's development. And finally, an assumption is defined as a thing that is accepted as true or as certain to happen without proof. We all know the old saying about assuming, and this could potentially play out as an interim service coordinator, assuming that a family will never follow through with any of the recommendations based upon your first 10 minutes in a home during the family assessment. This carried assumption will convey to the family And if self-fulfilling prophecies have anything to do with it, they could potentially live up to your low expectations. However, you also have the ability to assume that they're having a bad day. So assumptions can move from the positive or the negative. Best bet, assume the positive of the family. If an assumption must be made, assume positively. Sometimes in the human services field, we do see difficult things. In order to continue this job at our optimal level, we truly have to choose to see the good, assume the good, and be the good in every situation. Now, with all of that being said, we also know that we are mandated reporters. So in choosing to see the good, we also know that in any suspected instances of true child abuse, we report. So in this deep look on values, beliefs, and assumptions, you may have noticed something interesting. Each of these are based upon individual judgments and not always based upon fact, but upon our personal experiences. So this, in a sense, is a personal choice, and one that if we try to push against families with, may cause devastating consequences to our first impressions and undermine our ability to form supportive and positive relationships. In our use of disposition and positive dispositions with families, it's always a great idea to leave your values, your beliefs, and your assumptions on their doorstep and pick them back up on the way out the door. The final suggested preparation technique encourages making the process smooth for families. This can include having documents that need to be signed and completed in an orderly fashion and reading what you can about the family prior to the family assessment. For example, if in the paperwork you read that both mom and dad work outside the home during the daytime, you may consider that they will probably be looking for evening-only evaluations. In knowing that the family will have to select evaluators during this visit, you might choose to shuffle your provider directory to accommodate and highlight those individuals that provide evening evaluations. Additionally, if you've noted that a child has a specific diagnosis in the paperwork, you may again shuffle the provider directory to include those evaluators who have indicated to work with this specific diagnosis. While we know that there are no urges to select a specific provider, we also want to refrain from handing over a gigantic directory to a family at the end of the family assessment and simply say, pick one, because we know that this can be overwhelming. We listen to what the family has to say about their desires and needs and show them, through our pre-planning, what evaluators show matches to these desires. This will be discussed more in detail in the following on-demand trainings. However, it is very important to consider in planning for your family assessment in order to provide support, positivity, and a non-overwhelming experience for families. Just as we use planning to create comfort for families prior to the visit, we also use opportunities during the visit to encourage comfort during the family assessment. This next section will provide some food for thought for maintaining a positive disposition and allowing for comfort during the family assessment. We discussed the preparation technique of only taking in items that are necessary during the family assessment. This may mean that your keys are in a zippered bag in your possession, along with a locked car, with your purse either in a trunk or out of sight in the locked car. Again, this avoids any potential uncomfortable situations with a family and any need for concern of personal property. Another area to avoid is the potential to find yourself complaining with or to a family. We are there for their support, and while there can often be a conversation that can lead to the discouraging moments offered by a family, we want to avoid complaining about, say, specific doctors or services that may be utilized or have been utilized by families. A simple acknowledgement of the injustice using a disposition that conveys empathy and compassion is warranted, saying something like, "I am so sorry that you've had this experience," whereas gossiping is urged to be avoided. We don't want to go down the rabbit hole further igniting a family's injustice with a response such as, "I have heard that doctor is terrible. Another family told me a similar story, and I think that's just crazy. He should have his license revoked." In doing this, we only separate ourselves from other services and potential referrals of children that may need birth to 3 services. We must find a balance between support and gossip to remain a positive, safe place for families. Additionally, moments may occur where you find yourself frustrated within the system. This is inevitable. The best friendships experience moments of tension and frustrations, along with the best marriages as well. We are likely to be frustrated with something in our work from time to time. However, in the homes of families is not the place to find relief and venting opportunities. It may convey to the family that the system is filled with issues, whereas it may just be a tough day. We want to offer to families a feeling of a strong, supportive system behind them, and with complaints shared with families, or potentially even comments such as, "I don't know why we have to do this, the state just makes us." These may create feelings of distrust within families. So just keep in mind, if there are issues that you're having with this process, a supervisor is a person to talk through them with. Our families have their own worries, and we need not burden them with the feelings of systemic challenges. This also leads us to the next recommendation, which includes providing the family with an explanation of each item to be asked. A source of frustration from any interim service coordinator may stem from not knowing why a question is necessary of the family. In the sections of Family Assessment Training Series, these will be covered in detail so that each item asked of the family can be fully explained and understood, thereby decreasing any need to express that an item is just protocol, but that each item will in fact help us to do our job better, which is to identify the family needs and current situation so that we can provide the best supports to the family. When we focus on what the family is offering, we provide an understanding to the family that they're absolutely vital to this birth to 3 process. We are a support system, a family-centered support system, and when we can convey that what they have to offer to us about their child and family is crucial to the process, we truly begin to create those partnerships that lay the foundation for their participation in the birth to 3 system. By allowing the family room to express and talk about their family and becoming a sound listener in this process, we afford the family the room to share. This will be covered more in depth in the conversational interviewing on-demand training. However, it's crucial to note that this is a process of conveying a disposition of support, compassion, and empathy for a family while showing them that they are truly vital spokes in this wheel. Another area worth mentioning is the reality that there can be surprises encountered during a family assessment. This may be the physical act of sitting upon something liquid that may not be identifiable, or a family's plea for you to identify if their child falls on the autism spectrum. While there are a myriad of surprises that can occur during this time with a family, we must hold powerful, positive dispositions to highlight these first initial contacts. For instance, you may be screaming inside because you've sat upon this mystery liquid, but we must remain calm so not to appear judgmental or fearful of a family's home situation. We allow ourselves to breathe deeply through these moments to find that compassion, empathy, and disposition that conveys that the family is accepted. A simple statement such as, "Oh, it appears I've sat in something. Would it be okay for me to have a napkin or a paper towel to wipe this up?" The same holds true for other potential surprises, such as the family asking you if their child is on the autism spectrum. Again, we recognize our own boundaries and support the family through compassion and empathy by reassuring them that you hear their concerns. And while we're not necessarily diagnosticians, we can help them to look into this further by providing them with the proper resources and supporting them throughout the process. The idea through the process of supporting families in our dispositions is to create a feeling of non-judgment in any case, supporting families within our limits, and a great first impression of a system to assure that there are positive relationships being built with the family. And our final consideration is about acknowledging family offerings. So as we're invited into a family's home, we have to carefully navigate the offerings that are made by the families. For example, if a family's home does not appear to be very clean, and we have been offered a drink from a cup that you may question its cleanliness, we can simply say something like, "Thank you so much. I appreciate the offer, but I've been drinking water all day." The same holds true with any food items that you may question. The big idea here is to really just become aware of how you appear in these situations. Take note of your body language and what it conveys. Are you conveying that you're comfortable saying no thank you, or are you conveying that you're uncomfortable because of the situation? We really want to allow the family to feel at ease in your presence and allow you to feel easy in the way that you move through this family assessment process. In summary, there's a lot of preparation and consideration that can go into dispositions with families. They allow for a feeling of comfort and an organization that is going to be supportive of the family. The purpose of the family assessment is to allow a family to open up about their desires, their worries, and their hopes for their child and their family. We gain this information so that we can best help the family through understanding their situation, so that we can offer them supports that will assist their child and family. We hope that this training highlighted for you the importance of first impressions and how dispositions play into the family's ability to share their story. Thank you for taking the time to watch this training, and thank you for your dedication to children and families.